posted on that email a Pirkei Avot link.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
if anyone wanted to see it before.
That's good. Yeah, I saw that. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get started. So everyone mute yourselves, so to speak. So in case you're coughing or
Well, we
sneezing.
need to do the bracha and the sponsors.
Do it together.
Oh, so you want to do the sponsors first? Okay, Betty, you're doing the sponsors, or Jane does it?
Here, I have it here, so Betty can do it. There it is, right there.
Why don't you just hold up the sign and we can see who they are and then go on?
It's great that we have all these sponsors, so I want to read their names. Sponsors of this study are Irving Goldstein in memory of his wife, Helene Goldstein, June and Charles Knopf in memory of June's father, Marvin Faust, Eileen Bennett in memory of her grandmother, Claire Bennett, Betty and Eric Adams in memory of my father, Max Becker, Doreen Salkoff in honor of Rabbi Steve's series of teaching this on Pirkei Avot. And thank you to all of them.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we offer our prayer. Now, for those of you who were at services last night, or for those of you who streamed on, you might recall my opening remarks, and that is our bracha is lasok b'divrei Torah, meaning to be engaged. And it's very easy, especially with Pirkei Avot. We're going to read these statements, these ethical, moral teachings of the rabbis 2,000 years ago, approximately. And we're going to say, oh, that's obvious. Okay, they are. Many of them, you understand them. But the point is to, number one, understand them a little bit deeper. Is there something else? Remember, well, first of all, it's interesting. No one makes a statement like these rabbis did without experiences of people doing the opposite. Because remember, they're teaching. The same way is, let's take, for instance, in the Torah, I believe it is in Leviticus, it says that you will not consult a necromancer, meaning someone who can contact the dead. It is an evil. It is an abomination. Well, from that you learn what? That people obviously were doing this. Someone says, did we contact the dead in Torah times? The answer is yes. And you might say, well, what evidence we have of it? The fact is, if there's a law saying not to, it means people were. Obviously, everyone in the world stopped at red lights. You would not have to before making a right turn. If everyone actually stopped and waited 5 seconds, you wouldn't have to have a sign up there saying to stop. People would do it. So that gives you an indication. The same thing here. And so the lasok b'divrei Torah, be engaged in the words of Torah. Number one is to begin. We could, of course, get into a whole discussion. This is not a class. This could go on for a long time. We stop at each one of the paragraphs. First, read more about the rabbi speaking and about his life. I'm sorry, there were no hers. His life, and then read the teaching. But this is only 3 weeks, and as you can see, we certainly cannot do that. But that might be a very interesting class. And that brings it now to the next level. The other thing is, obviously, to then ask ourselves, how do these teachings speak to us? Am I someone who lives this way? Am I someone who doesn't live this way? Should I live this way? And some of the ones today are most directed in that way. So remember, the bracha ends la'asok b'divrei Torah. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, let me mute everybody, and then people can unmute themselves.
And that's pretty good, because we had 21 of you on here, including myself, obviously. And last week we had 22, so we didn't lose too many people. Not a
Wait, Rabbi, I'm gonna mute. You're gonna get a second, then I'll unmute you. Just 1 second. Where is he? Where did the rabbi go?
Where did he go?
There he is, Steve Moss. Okay, Rabbi. Whoop. Well, you were unmuted. Where'd you go? You didn't unmute. I can do it. Oh no, you're unmuted, Rabbi. Go ahead.
Okay, hold on. Oh, can you hear me now, as I say? Right? Eric, oh, 1 second.
Somebody needs to unmute. I can unmute you as well, or Jane can, but you can do it yourself, one individually. Thank you.
We should raise hands then if we want to say something, huh?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So everyone can hear me, right? Shake your heads, nod your heads, blink your eyes. Okay, very good. No, I'm sorry, blink your left eye only. Okay. All right, so here we go. So I'm doing this from Sephariah. There were other numerous sites that I could bring up, but this one is fine. There's no reason. Let's see, I figured this out last week. I'm so proud of myself. Let's see, to make it, oh, man. Oh, I'm not proud of myself. I blanked it out. I'm sorry about that. That's msn.com. That's why. Okay. Great. Okay, very good. Mazel tov. Okay. So let me go over here and make it a little bigger. There we go. All right, I'm gonna move the box over. Okay, we're going to look at chapters 3 and 4 today. And what I realized, we're going to skip around because obviously within the approximately 45 minutes that I have, there's no way we could read through all of the sayings of these rabbis, okay? Well, let's begin here without any further ado, as they say. We're in Pirkei Avot, chapter 3. There are only 6 chapters, and the first paragraph. Akabia ben Mechalalel. Ben means son of course. And remember, each one of these were rabbis, teachers. We don't have any indication from here in what setting they offered these teachings, whether all of these rabbis were in the same room together or they were recorded at different times. Okay. Mark well 3 things, and you will not come into the power of sin. Okay.
Rabbi, I'm sorry, we're not seeing, you're not sharing the parts you're talking about. Can you scroll your screen, maybe? Scroll your...
You see that?
We're only seeing the Hebrew letters for chapter 3.
Number 3.
That's chapter 3, but we're seeing the top. He, Rabbi Tarfon, used to say it's not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty. And we're seeing...
Try again. No.
Yeah. I could share it. You want me to share?
Oh no, it's like, oh. Fine. Let's try this one. Do you see that now? The English?
Yeah.
Okay.
Abaya.
Oh, but it's not the beginning of
Yes, that's it. It is, yeah.
Yes, in. Okay. Oh my God,
it's
Kavaya,
Lemicom.
Kavaya ben
It's starting
Mahal.
out Lemicom, Afar.
Yeah. Okay. Mark well 3 things. You see that? Okay. Yes. Okay. Mark well 3 things will not come in the power of sin. The rabbis were very hung up on sin. In other words, our misdeeds. And I hope all of you would certainly shake your heads yes if I were to say, or actually no, if I were to say, is there anyone here who has never committed a sin? Okay, I don't think so. Okay, we are there, and thereby, the rabbis were most concerned about what? Behavior. The word sin has such connotations. However, it is a word that is certainly a part of our tradition, not only in Yom Kippur. So they're marked 3 things so that you won't come into sin. You won't do misdeeds of any sort, ethical, moral, spiritual, religious, between us, between God. Know from where you come and where you are going. And you'll see what this means. It just doesn't mean I came from Anshe Shalom this morning and came here. It's not talking about that. And before whom you are destined to give an account and reckoning. So then Akabia then gives the answer. Where do you come from? Now, he's very graphic here, and people love, oh, I keep on doing that, sorry. Okay. People love quoting this. We come from a putrid drop. What are they talking about? We come from a drop of semen. Sorry, but that's what he said. That's it. We think we're so, wow, you know, boy, am I special? Am I great or whatever? Well, it's not, oh God, so simple. And where are we going to? To a place of dust, of worms, and of maggots. In other words, we're all going to find ourselves in the ground someday. So if you were to think that you are hot stuff and you can get away with anything you want to get away with, well, then maybe you would become more oriented to doing bad things, sinning. However, if you realize that, guess what? You are no more than a drop of semen and basically dust and food for the worms later on. You might say to yourself, you know something? I'm just this in my life. And maybe I would say, you know something? I really have to be more conscious of who I am. And who do you have to give account to? Obviously, the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be he, meaning God. So a copy is quite often quoted, especially later on during the later Middle Ages, with what was called the Musar literature. Rabbi Salanter, for any of you who've heard of him, some of these guys were really pretty rough stuff. I mean, there are stories of rabbis actually flogging themselves, fasting, trying to hurt themselves in order to use the pain to overcome sin. And they quite often would look at a paragraph like that and say, you know something, I'm really nothing, and therefore I'm going to be nothing, except before God, I have to be wise of what I'm saying. So I'm going to skip number 2 and number 3. Rabbi Shimon said, if 3 have eaten at one table and have not spoken the words of Torah, it is as if they had eaten sacrifices offered to the dead. Okay, so this week in chapter 3, and I've never read anything as to how these chapters and sayings were organized in any kind of an order, following one from another. But today's teaching is a little bit more so than last week, kind of hit us in the gut, so to speak. If you have 3 people, okay, it doesn't say 10, but if 3 people are sitting together at lunch, let's say, you go out to a restaurant or in your home, and you're not speaking about Torah, it is as if you offered sacrifices to the dead even. In other words, what you've offered is basically nothing at all, because you just spoke about the Yiddish's Narishkeit, nothing. As it is said in Isaiah, for all tables are full of filthy vomit when the all present is absent. Pretty, like I said, some of these sayings this week are kind of graphic. But if 3 have eaten at one table and have spoken their words of Torah, it is as if they had eaten at the table of the all present, blessed be he, as it is said in Ezekiel, and he, God, said unto me, this is the table before the Lord. So in other words, the rabbis spoke a lot about this both during Talmudic times and later on. We should not speak narishkeit. We should not have to engage in casual narishkeit or just casual conversation, but our conversation should have meaning to them, and of course for them it was all about Torah. These rabbis were describing an extreme way of living, but to them, obviously, it was based in Torah. Rabbi Hananiah ben Hakinai said, one who wakes up at night or walks on the way alone and turns his heart to idle matters, behold, this man is mortally guilty. Wow. Okay. So if you simply, again, and even in your mind, forget about conversations to people, you think about narishkeit. You wake up in the middle of the night and you say, boy, what am I going to be making for dinner tomorrow night? That's narishkeit. You should wait. If you wake up in the middle of the night, think about God, start praying. This is where they were focused. And I thought that this is a very important chapter 3 to go through because it really takes us to a very different level, especially in light of last week, of following a path to God. Yeah, someone said, yeah, Stanley.
I have a question here. It all seems to be based on following God based on fear, not love.
Yeah, well, the rabbis were very specific. I'm going to speak on their behalf. There are 2 different modes of relationship with God. The first one is yirah, fear, and then ahava, love. That was what it is all about. You will not love someone or let's say God, until you first fear God. Once, and I'll put it in another phrase because we had discussed this last week, the question of, and Lynn brought this up, is yirah fear or awe? Sometimes I think translating yirah as awe is just being euphemistic and kind of, we have to see this the way the rabbis did. For them, there is a real sense of fear of God. If you do this, similar to, remember for those of you who were at Temple last night or streamed it, I spoke about those words from today, im bechukotai. And actually, if you want to really be shaken out of your lovely chairs, read im bechukotai, the Torah portion, the second Torah portion for this Shabbat. It has a very long, a list of the blessings one will receive if they follow God's ways. And then, wow, a much, much, much longer list of the curses, the bad stuff that will happen to a person if they don't do what God wants us to do. That is their theology. Whether you accept it or not in your life, any of us, it's always up to us, obviously, how we see God. But yes, Stanley, it was fear and then love for them.
Not
Yeah.
true.
Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, I love some of these names, right? I always say to myself, wow, what do they call him for short? Nahun, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana said, whoever takes upon himself the yoke of the Torah, they remove him from the yoke of government and the yoke of worldly concerns. Now, by the way, I'm sure some of you either personally or have read books or seen movies of those of extreme, let us say, Hasidic traditions, where they literally separated themselves from this world. And again, certainly all of us as modern Jews, we certainly don't see it this way. I'm sure you're familiar that there are some of the Hasidic communities, not only in Israel, but in Borough Park, maybe even actually parts of Florida, wherever, who forbid they actually have special smartphones for their children in which they cannot go onto certain websites. The world about them is meaningless. It is only the world of the Torah. Okay, number 6. Rabbi Chalafta of Kfar Hananya. Kfar is the Hebrew word for a settlement or a town. So this person there must have been other Chalaftas, and so this is the one from Hananya. Said, when 10 sit together and occupy themselves with the Torah, the Shekhinah abides among them. As it is said, God stands in the congregation of God. Now, from this, what do we get from this? The concept of the minyan. When 10 men, sorry ladies, according to obviously this period of time, 2,000 years ago, when 10 men get together and occupy themselves in the study of Torah, then that is where God is. Okay, based upon they have interpreted the word congregation to be a minimum of 10. I hope all of you realize that in Reform Judaism, we have done away completely with the concept of minyan. And therefore, if there's one person in temple, we'll say Kaddish. There's one person in temple, in addition to the rabbi, I'm assuming, or cantor, then we'll read Torah. In an Orthodox or conservative, conservative adds women, Orthodox, no. Okay. Now, the question then is, how do we know that the same is true even of 5? As it is said, this band of his he has established on earth. How do we know the same is true for even 3? As it is said, in the midst of the judges, he judges. How do we know that the same is true even of 2? As it is said, then they that fear the Lord spoke one with another, 2, and the Lord hearkened and heard. How do we know that the same is true even of 1? As it is said, in every place where I cause my name to be mentioned, I will come unto you, one person, and bless you. Exodus. So from this, we begin to learn the Reform community, and this is not a history class, and we should have another class actually on the history of Reform Judaism, which actually goes back to the 1800s in Europe, which some of you might not be aware. And there's actually older than conservative Judaism, which did not develop until the 1920s here in America. But Reform Judaism simply didn't carefree say, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do away with minyan now. Well, we don't want to be bothered with that stuff. Who cares? Or we only care about individuals, whatever. No, the early Reform rabbis and scholars went back to the sources. So from this paragraph of Halafta, we begin to say, you know something, as a Reform rabbi, you know something, God not only dwells amongst the minyan, the 10, as our Orthodox brethren say, and they quote other sources for that. But guess what? It says right here, even if there is one, God is there. So we now feel justified according to the sources in having no minyan concept. And if there's one present, then God is there, and that's all that matters. Interesting, right? Okay. Moving to number, obviously I'm being selective today because you could see I could go on forever here about most anything, but 10, okay. This is nice. Okay, now we're getting to some nicer things. I'm sorry when jumping up and down is not to drive you crazy, Meshuggah. Obviously when I'm moving my mouse thing here, it moves further down or up. He used to say, let's see, who's the he? Let's go back up. Hanania ben Dosa, okay? Another Hanania. He used to say, one with whom men are pleased, God is pleased. But anyone from whom men are displeased, God is displeased. What do you think this could mean? One with whom men are pleased, God is pleased. But anyone for whom men are displeased, God is displeased. What does it mean? Let's say, for instance, if there's someone who people don't like, does that mean that God doesn't like them either? Or do you think he might be saying something more? Anyone have any thoughts about this off the cuff? I can't see Eric, so I can't help you out. If you see anyone raise their,
Yeah, I can see everybody. I'm watching. Nobody's raising their hand.
no one, we have no idea.
Seema, I think Seema is kind of, yeah, Seema, go ahead.
Okay, Seema.
Clearly, I mean, maybe it's
I
too
have an idea.
simplistic. Clearly, it means that if somebody is living among men and he has a bad reputation for perhaps doing things that are not acceptable, then men are displeased. And if he doesn't change his ways to make himself acceptable in that society, then God is displeased with him, because those are the rules that were made in that society to live by. So if he's maybe it means that he doesn't have humility, and there is nothing in the that says you have to have humility as such. And maybe he thinks of himself too much, and people are not pleased with that. So I think it's doing something which in society, in the social structure of the society, when you do something that makes you stand out in a negative way with others, that's when God is not pleased with you.
Thank you, Rabbi Seema. Very good. Okay, so Rabbi Sherry.
Yeah. I have an idea. What about the idea that they're saying that whatever you do, even if you think you have a better idea and it's better than God would do, God won't recognize it, because God is the one that you have to follow, not what you are doing.
Okay, so it's more someone who's very self-oriented.
Or like they think that they're doing the best for you, even though it may not be what God has done, and you need to do what God does, not what you do. What do you
Right,
think?
okay, good. We'll
that,
come across
right?
that later on too.
Okay.
There's two other
Thank you,
people.
Rabbi, and Rabbi Janet.
Rebecca
Well-
was first, and then Janet. Rebecca had her
Okay,
hand up
I
first.
can see Rebecca's hand.
And Charlie too, yeah.
Right, okay.
And Rebecca first, then Charlie, then with Janet, then Charlie.
Rebecca?
I'll unmute Rebecca. Hold on a second. Rebecca, I'm gonna unmute you.
I think this was a period when people had to conform to the group. And if they didn't conform, they would say, God is unhappy with you. It was like a way of keeping everybody in the group.
Okay.
Anyone that had a different idea might upset things.
Okay, interesting.
Not freedom of will.
Yeah, interesting. I just want to point out something here. If you notice, I went back to the Hebrew. Hu haya omer, he would say, Kol sheruach habriot nocha emenu. The word ruach means a spirit, okay, the inner quality of a person. Every person's spirit is brought when a person's spirit, nature, nocha hemenu, brings a nocha, which I would actually, from the Hebrew word menucha, meaning calmness or peaceness, brings peace or a calm spirit to others. The spirit of God will receive peacefulness from him. So I really, seeing this word nocha, I probably would I would translate this a little bit differently about being pleased, as much as a person who brings peace to others brings peacefulness and calmness to God. And I think we can understand that a little bit better. That's what I would do. But maybe Joshua Culp, if he was here, might disagree with me. Okay, I think Janet, yeah.
I think if you go along with this translation, it's absolutely horrible, meaning that anybody who goes against societal norms, God would be against them. And this is really what gives a lot of people the right to speak ill of anyone who does not, maybe, LGBTQ, transgender, anybody who doesn't fit
No.
what some might consider societal norms.
But yeah, that's what Rebecca was saying. That's why I think I like my translation better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, me too. And I think you said Charlie had his hand up?
Watkin. Yeah, Charlie, do you need me to unmute you? I'll unmute you, Charlie. Go ahead, Charlie.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
No, my question is, it's very seldom that society as a whole agrees on any one thing. There'll be half the society, for example, will say, this is the kind of policy I like, and another half will say that is a detestable thing. I think that's more common than saying that all of society agrees that one person is either good or bad.
Yeah. There was actually an expression that I recall in which actually you can find it in places in the Bible, that one should live a life so he or she finds favor in the eyes of fellow men and women, and also in the eyes of God. And we could discuss, what does it mean to find favor? And maybe this is related to this. But I think really the word nucha really means peacefulness or calmness. Okay, let's continue. Rabbi Dosa ben Harkanis said, how many of you sleep late in the morning? Okay, I will not mention any names. First of all, I don't know about any of you, but people that I know personally, they go to sleep very late and then they wake up like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, according to Rabbi Dosa, morning sleep is not good. Midday wine is not good. If you have wine with your lunch, guess what? You're going to want to take a snooze afterward. Children's talk and sitting in the assembly of the ignorant put a man out of the world. In other words, don't say silly things and just hang out with people who are intelligent and who do the right way. I'm sure we can understand that. Okay, moving along. Number 14. I'm going to skip a lot here. Okay. 14, is that 14? 14, okay, here we are.
What does Rabbi Akiva say?
He used to say, let's see who the he is. Again, Rabbi Akiva. Oh, okay. Everyone's seen this word sex, so you probably want to read that one. Okay. Rabbi Akiva said, merriment and frivolity accustom one to sexual licentiousness. I'm not commenting on that. Okay. All right. Because then we get into politics. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Okay. Tradition is offense to the Torah. We came across a similar thing about offense to the Torah last week. In other words, particularly in an Orthodox way of life, but even in a Reform way of life, the things that we hold dear, we want to protect. If everything falls apart, what do we have? We have nothing. So tradition, it holds us together. That's the beautiful thing, of course, of the show and Fiddler on the Roof. It is tradition that keeps us together. We're going to go down further. Okay. Akiva used to say, I like this one. Beloved is man, and by the way, of course, we could all substitute man or woman or people in any of these. Beloved is man, for he was created in the image of God. And I think that that's a very beautiful statement. Especially beloved is he, for it was made known to him that it had been created in the image of God, as it is said, for in the image of God he made man. And notice what he did here in this translation. Especially beloved is he, meaning the person, for it is made known to him that it had been created in the image of God. This reminds me of one of the very wonderful and very positive statements made for those people I've met who were in OA, the 12 steps, and that is God doesn't make junk. For a person to know that he was or she was made in the image of God makes every single person, no matter who they are, no matter how maybe messed up their life is or was, still a precious person, because we're all in the image of God. And continuing, beloved are Israel, in that they were called children to the all-present. Okay, especially beloved are they, for it was made known to them. Oh, hold on a second. Hey, Jason, can I call you back? Okay, in a little while, bye. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, especially beloved are they, for it was made known to them that they are called children of the all-present. So in other words, again, notice the beauty of his statements here is talking about both ends. God tells us that we are in God's image. God tells us that we are holy, but the key is we also know that we are holy because God's telling us we're holy. You might recall last night in my translation, not only translation was in the Torah itself, of the beautiful words that I shared last night in the Torah from Im Bechu Kotai. It said, I will be your God and you will be my people. Yeah, I mean, that's extraordinary. We're not going to get into a discussion, what about non-Jews, okay? The Talmud is written for Jews during a specific time, 2,000 years ago in Eretz Yisrael, and later on in Babylonia, which is Iraq today. And therefore, we just have to see it for what it is. It's not a book for non-Jews. So it's talking about Jews.
Rabbi.
Yes.
I think when the word image is used, they're not talking about a physical appearance, are they? They're talking about something deeper than that.
I've often wondered if God actually has to wear trifocals like I have. No, God, no. It's talking about our inner qualities that are in the image of God, that we always strive to then emulate. Okay, so we're going to, that was 4:15. Oh,
I'm sorry, Rabbi. Rebecca had her hand up before, and I don't know if we ever let her speak. Rebecca, did you want to comment on something and you weren't able to?
Something is very significant. I have everything ready. I have the book of Proverbs or Exodus. We could go right to it and see where it actually says. It sometimes gives more credibility to what you're teaching us. If that may be taking too much time, then I forget it. But I know that was something I would have liked looking up in the Torah, actually.
Yeah.
Whenever you think it's important, I have the book available and we can look it up. Okay.
Well, Rebecca, if you would like to have an assignment, okay, and that is like next week, we're going to be doing chapters 5 and 6. Obviously, not the whole chapters. But if you look through there and something says, oh, I think that's in the Bible, I can find a source for it. How about write it during this week if you have the time to write it down, and then as we go through it, you'll be able to do that.
5 and 6. Now, where do I find the Pirkei Avot? Is it in the in our Chumash?
No, it's not in the Bible at all. Much later on than that.
What book has it?
The Mishnah.
The Mishnah.
Yeah. What you need, what you could do is where I got this from. If you go to Sephariah, SEFARIA.com, and then in the search thing on the top, just put in Pirkei Avot, and it'll come up.
Okay. Yeah.
Lynn is trying to show you something.
You said 5 and 6, chapters 5 and 6. Okay.
Yeah, the text that's my resource has all of the notations where much of the phrasing in this is related both in Proverbs, Torah, and other places as well. I'll give you a call, Rebecca. Maybe Helene has this book in the library.
That'll be good, but I have the whole Torah, so that, and you know, when you have I shouldn't say the Torah, I should say the Bible, so that has everything. So
you have the Talmud, and that Pirkei Avot is in the Talmud. You could probably find it.
I have a copy of the Talmud someplace. I'll find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do.
Well, it's in the well. Don't forget the Talmud is based upon the Mishnah, which is the earlier work. Jane.
Rebecca, on today's email link that I sent late last night, I put a hyperlink going to Pirkei Avot.
Oh,
because a week ago when the temple put up Sefaria.org, it did not go to Sefaria. It only went to the temple. So I went into Sefaria and I found Pirkei Avot, and I put a blue hyperlink in last night's email to you.
Okay.
To everyone. So if you look at today's email that you clicked on to enter, there should be a blue hyperlink for Pirkei Avot.
Blue link. Oh, excellent.
Okay.
Very-
Obviously, I've set this up as a 3-session program, so we can only do so much. If we were to go through all the sources of all of this, that would be probably a year's course, which is not so bad. However, but and I thank you, Rebecca, for this, to
Well, we have a
realize
problem.
everyone, these
Whenever-
rabbis didn't
Right.
just make these things up, okay? These
Yeah.
rabbis knew the Bible by heart. They knew the Torah by heart. They knew the other parts of the Mishnah by heart. And therefore, they didn't quote anything without a source in the sources. They had to. When you get into the Talmud and other works like that, they'll actually give the sources of their works, but not here. Okay, Rabbi Akiva, this is a very, very important statement. It has led to many, many discussions in books. Everything is foreseen, yet
Yeah.
freedom of choice is granted. What in the world does this mean? Everything is foreseen, meaning that there is a destiny, a plan for everything in our lives, but freedom of choice is granted. How can there be freedom of choice if everything is foreseen? And this is obviously by God, not by us. We don't foresee the future. We don't know what's going to happen. God sees the future, but yet freedom is granted. And this could be a whole nother program of discussion about Judaism and free will. Judaism is based upon free will. We have to have free choice. Otherwise, what's the point of the whole mitzvah system? And also, therefore, corresponding the whole system of rewards and punishments, which is certainly a part of Jewish tradition, whether we like it or not. But then, if everything is foreseen, so some of the scholars have said, well, this means that the ultimate outcome, God knows what's going to happen. But how we get to that outcome, that end result, is up to each one of us. Well, it's a pretty hairy situation. And Eric has his hand up. But you're muted.
To be brief, just to be brief, my opinion of it is God knows the possibility of all possible outcomes, but because of free will, he doesn't know really what we're going to do. So he doesn't really know the future. It's not hard cast. We have the opportunity to change it, but God knows all the possibilities. So he knows where we could be going and what's most likely to happen.
Well, notice the beautiful at the end of Onatana Tokef, when it talks about who is to live, who is to die, who is to get wealthy, who is to be poor, blah, blah. It says at the end, but tefillah, utstaka, utshuva, right? Prayer, giving tzedakah, and repentance can what? Avert the severe decree. Now, there are some translations that don't use the word avert, meaning you can nullify the severe decree, because what does it mean to be decreed? Can you change the decree of God? What does all of this mean? I'll just give you a cute story, and then I'm going to go on, because there's so much to do in such a short period of time. Many, many years ago, I was asked to officiate at a second marriage of this couple. Earlier on, a couple of years before that, they were on JDate, which is a internet dating site, and they exchange information, they exchange photographs, but they never met for coffee. They never actually met for whatever reason. 2 years later, both of them happened to be in Arizona at a gas station pumping gas at the exact same time. They looked up at each other pumping gas. She said to him, "Hey, you look familiar." He said the same thing to her. They started talking and realized why they were familiar to each other. They said, "Let's go for coffee," and I officiated their wedding. You can be sure at their wedding ceremony, I said the following: God is amazing, but why does God take so long to get us to the point where God wants to get us to? Why did God make this couple wait 2 years and put them into Arizona, etc.? Anyway, this is an amazing statement of Rabbi Akiva's. And again, it shows that whole word lasok, to be engaged with the words of Torah. And the world is judged with goodness. Notice how every single phrase of Pirkei Avot is so succinct. The world is judged with goodness. We would like to think that. There is good. Judaism, unlike other religions, some other religions, believes that the world existence is based upon goodness. The Yetzer Tov is our basis. God's basis in working with humanity and the world is chesed, is kindness, goodness, and love. It's only when we mess things up that obviously things turn around to the other side. And therefore, everything is in accordance with the preponderance of works. The Hebrew word over here, hama'aseh, means the things that we do make a difference. So I appreciate Eric's comment. Now I'm going to scoot ahead here to 4, because I only have a little bit of time left. Okay, 4. Rabbi Ben Zoma, another famous rabbi, said, "Who is wise? He who learns from every man, as it is said to Hillel." So here, Rebecca, that giving some quotations, "From all who taught me have I gained understanding." A very good thing. If you don't learn from other people about life, about things, I'm not talking just about teachers, then guess what? You're not learning anything at all, because it's all about you. And well, you're going to reach a wall at some point in time, and you can't go beyond it. Notice what it is. Who is mighty? Now, if I were to go, let's say over here, a couple of blocks to the LA Fitness over here off of Jog, and go in there, and I would say, who's mighty here? Who's strong? Those guys would go like that, and the women would go like that, and they'd lift those barbells, 700 pounds and whatever. Okay, because they would assume that it's all about their physical strength. However, how do I look over there? Good, okay, okay. However, it says here, he who subdues his evil inclination, as it is said in Proverbs, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that rules his spirit, then he takes a city. The person who is mighty is not the person who lifts the barbells or whatever, but rather the person who can what? Control his evil inclination to do bad things. And I will say parenthetically, if people today in our world thought about this, the world would not be where it is right now. That's for sure. Because people simply act upon instinct or without thinking. As I would teach in my class on Stop Bias program for bias and hate crimes offenders, think before you speak, think before you act, and you wouldn't have been arrested. Next one. He who is rich, who is rich? He who rejoices in his lot, as it says in Psalms, you shall enjoy the fruit of your labors, you shall be happy, and you shall be prosper. It's not to say you shouldn't want more in life. Sure, when those of us some of us like me are working still, but those of you who are not working, when you are working, it's nothing wrong with saying, you know something, I'm going to put a little bit more time in so maybe I can get a raise. I'm going to do a better job so I can get a raise. However, if you always are looking at other people and not just simply saying, you know something, my life is not so bad, then you're always going to be what? A miskite. You're always going to be miserable. You're always going to be filled with jealousy. You're always going to be filled with negative stuff that will only destroy you. So the person who is rich, who has the most values, is the one who, guess what? Values simply what he or she has.
That's me, like
Okay, wait.
gratification.
We could, of course, we could actually do a survey here and ask, what do you like? The last one. Who is he that is honored?
What number is that? I'm sorry. What number?
Number 1.
Number 1. Okay.
Yeah.
We're still
On
on number 1.
Chapter 4, number 1.
Okay, I went past it. Okay. Thank you.
He who honors his fellow human beings. So who is going to be honored? Who's going to be honored? The one who, guess what? Honors other people, respects them, treats them in the image of God that they are. That's the person who's going to be honored. For I honor those that honor me, but those who spurn me shall be dishonored, from the first book of Samuel, chapter 2. So just this one paragraph alone really is just such valuable, beautiful teachings. Again, just to go to the questions: who is wise, who is mighty, who is rich, who is honored, who is he or she that is honored. Wow, beautiful stuff. Okay, number 2. Ben Azai said, and I think one of you asked this question last week, as to, is there a difference between a small commandment and a really big commandment to transgress? Be quick in performing a minor commandment, as in the case of a major one, and flee from transgression. In other words, it's sort of like saying, so what? if I throw that piece of paper on the ground and I get a citation from the cop for littering, that's not so bad. Okay. But I'm not going to go about murdering anyone. Well, that's a good idea not to go about murdering anyone. But guess what? The person who throws that piece of paper out of their car window or the garbage out of their car window, guess what? They'll do that again and again. And then who knows what's next? For as it says here, for one commandment leads to another commandment, and transgression leads to another transgression. So in other words, if you can get away with something, you'll get away with it. I was always so put off. For those of you all remember, I'm sure, President Richard Nixon. Okay. And how many people would say, well, but he simply did what all politicians do. Okay. I was always irked by that because that is not a reason for misbehavior. Just because everyone's doing it doesn't mean any person should do it. For the reward for performing a commandment is another commandment, and the reward for committing a transgression is another transgression. And by the word, transgression is simply another word for sin or doing something wrong. There was actually an interview with Bernie Madoff, and the question was asked of Bernie, why did you keep on doing this? You knew what you were doing was wrong, didn't you? And in this interview, he said, yes, I did. Why did you keep on doing this? And you know what he said? He said, because I kept on getting away with it. No one was catching me. No one was telling me what I was doing was wrong. And the people that were making money from my Ponzi scheme, they loved making the money. Well, one sin brings on another. And ultimately, look what happened to him, no less, to say the least. Okay, I'm watching, got a little bit over. We'll go for a couple more minutes and I'll stop. Any comments, question? Rabbi Ishmael, his son, the son of the previous rabbi, said, he who learns in order to teach, it is granted to him to study and to teach. But he who learns in order to practice, it is granted to him to learn and to teach and to practice. In other words, yes, you want to learn in order to teach others. He might have been speaking to teachers, but in Judaism, remember the key is what? In order to practice, to live a life of Torah. That's the bottom line. And I'm going to move along here. Let's see, we'll go down here to the end, I guess. All right. 13, no, go much further. There's 22 paragraphs here. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Rabbi Jacob said, this world is like a vestibule before the world to come. Prepare yourself in the vestibule so that you may enter the banqueting hall. I think I mentioned this last week or in some other class that we had. Judaism does believe in what? Life after death. Our world that we live in is a vestibule before the world to come. And therefore, what we do now will affect the next life that we live. And Rabbi Jacob's statement is quite often quoted referring to that. Also, he used to say, more precious is 1 hour in repentance and good deeds in this world than all the life of the world to come. And more precious is 1 hour of tranquility of the world to come than all the life of this world. Interesting. Pitting one against the other. More precious is 1 hour repentance and good deeds in this world than all the life of the world to come. And why? Because when you live in repentance and good deeds in this life, even for 1 hour, it will bring about tranquility in the world to come in your next life of your soul as it continues on that journey. Oh, I like this one. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said, do not try to appease your friend during his hour of anger. Okay. Nor comfort him at the hour while his dead still lies before him. Okay. So if someone, let's say, for instance, you got someone angry or someone is just angry in general, the best thing to do is what? Stay away from them. Don't try to make them feel better. Just let them rant and rave. Eventually, they're going to tire themselves out. I'm sure many of us have experienced this. Nor comfort him at the hour while his dead lies before him. Judaism is very, very direct in saying, that the best thing to do when visiting a house of Shiva, particularly if it is a very tragic death, is guess what? People say to me, what do I say? What do I say? Their child just died or whatever, whomever. What do I say? Say nothing. Just give them a hug and just hold them. And that is the most important thing of all, because that's really saying comfort. Words are not necessary. Presence is what it's all about.
Rabbi, can you go back to the previous one?
What was that one?
Tranquility in the world to come.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Does that say there could not necessarily be tranquility in the world to come? Is there any question about that?
Well, it depends upon the way you live your life. I don't know about you. I would like to think that Hitler has no tranquility in the world to come. Okay. I don't want him to have a good time there. Right? Yeah. So yes, it is based on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Rebecca? I got
I'm gonna unmute you. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Rebecca. You're unmuted.
Okay, when you read Ecclesiastes, at the end it says, don't remember, everybody dies, even if you're very well educated. And I love learning, and I say to myself, when I have a choice, should I listen to Ecclesiastes or just do what I want to do? I ask myself these questions. Ecclesiastes, he says, what difference does it make if you really get educated? It's why you're alive that it makes a difference. That's all. These are things that, I question. The more that I study this, the more I question. But it's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, beautiful teachings. And the idea is to question it. Ecclesiastes was a Stoic, and you have to
Because
put
he
that in
doesn't
context.
believe in the afterworld.
No.
No, that's why I say this.
Yep.
He says, enjoy yourself. You're having a good time. And don't take advantage. Just live a good life and enjoy everything. I think that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Well, let us continue for the last one here. This is paragraph 22. Let's see who the he is again. That would be Rabbi Elazar HaKapar. Okay, the last one. The ones who are born are to die, and the ones who have died are to be brought to life, and the ones who are brought to life are to be judged. So going back to what Rebecca was just pointing out, if we stopped here, the ones who are born are to die. Okay, the end for everyone is worms and maggots. Remember that the earlier statement.
Yeah.
However, we do believe in a life after this one, where the ones who have died are to be brought to life. And we also do believe, whether we agree with this or not, that in the world to come, there will be a judgment of the way we've lived in this life. And the ones brought to life are to be judged, meaning in the next world life. So that one may make known, and have the knowledge that he, meaning God, is God. God is the designer. God is the creator. God is the discerner. God is the judge. God is the witness. God is the complainant against us, and that God will summon to judgment. Whether we believe in this or accept it or whatever, that there is this higher authority for which we have to hold an accounting. This is traditional Judaism. Blessed be he before whom there is no iniquity, nor forgetting, nor respect of persons, nor taking of bribes, for all is God. Okay. And know that all is according to the reckoning. There will be a reckoning for all of this. And let not your impulse assure thee that the grave is a place of refuge for you. In other words, a person who says, guess what? I can do whatever I want to do in life. What's the difference? When I'm dead, I'm dead. I'm sure you've heard this. Maybe even some of you believe this. However, notice what he says here. The grave is a place of refuge for you. Guess what? According to this teacher, it isn't. For against your will, you are formed. Against your will, you are born. Against your will, you live. Against your will, you will die. And against your will, you will give an account and a reckoning before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be he. These are very strong statements, right? Very, very powerful teachings to say to us, guess what? You didn't, obviously, I'm assuming that none of us were asked, do you want to be born? We were born. We've been given life. And guess what? we then have to live according to the system that's being placed before us. A very, very powerful direct statements, right? Yeah, these rabbis didn't fool around. They didn't wishy-washy. They said it like they believed it. They lived it, I'm assuming. And I think that has to be appreciated. But ultimately, and by the way, as we're pointing out, you can go back to these words in sephariah.com, Pirkei Avot, or if you go online to Google, as Lynn is looking at, there are many translations and commentaries to all of this. But ask yourselves, what does this mean to you? You could say, well, it doesn't mean I don't believe in this. I don't see this at all. I'm not going to go walking around beating my chest all the time. Well, guess what? If we don't beat our chest all the time and we think we're always doing everything great, okay, that we're perfect, guess what? Then we're going the wrong way according to Torah, whether we like it or not. Yeah. And we see a world today where there are those who simply say, guess what? The law means nothing. I am the law. And that's gets people into a lot of trouble and certainly hurts our world. So anyway, good to see all of you.
Thank you.
Everyone good?
Some hands up. Sherry has her hand up.
Yeah, Kenny
I-
wanted to say.
I just think the essence is that the body is just a vessel for the soul. That don't, it's not, it's beyond us. The body is just a thing. It's not your essence.
And just
That's
remember,
what you're saying, right?
the soul is the eternal part of us. This body of ours will came into being, and obviously we know this, will eventually stop functioning at the time of death. But even then, after that, our soul will continue. Whether it's one of the different beliefs in Judaism, in terms of the soul's journey after death, or whether in conjunction with reincarnation. You've heard me say this already a couple of times, that Judaism does believe in reincarnation. And by the way, it is my feeling that Judaism must believe in reincarnation, because after we are born, after we die, our body stops functioning. And let us say, we say, okay, our soul goes to some place, Gehenna, hell, Gan Eden, heaven, whatever, and has some existence there. Then the question is, what happens then? And my feeling is you must have reincarnation, because when the soul is in that next place, it cannot repair the sins that it committed while it was in a body without coming into another body. A soul without a body cannot do what? Cannot do mitzvahs. A soul without a body cannot light Shabbat candles, cannot celebrate Pesach, cannot go to shul, cannot say prayers. It needs a body for all of these things. So a neshama, a soul, must come back again into a bodily form in order to allow it to then repent from what it's done in the previous life, and continue until ultimately Judaism does believe that at some time in the future, all time will stop, and then there's the Messiah, and then there's the resurrection of the dead, which is a whole nother story, okay? And by the way, Chaim Vital, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Chaim Vital, the great teacher of Judaism and reincarnation from the 1500s, did say that we could have up to 1,000 lifetimes, 1,000 incarnations.
Rabbi, based on what you said, it was Hitler reincarnated? Was Hitler reincarnated?
Yeah, I won't tell you what I think he's reincarnated into. Yeah.
Toilet seat, maybe, right?
I think I stepped in it by accident the other day. No, it's okay. Okay. Anyway, everyone, Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
and hopefully see you next week for Pirkei Avot, if not before. Any announcements, Eric? Lynn?
No, thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, everyone, take care.
Thank you,
Shalom.
Rabbi.
Have a good
Have
week.
a good
you.
weekend, everybody.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.